Okay, so if we start with some introductions. So I'm Teresa Chinn, and I'm the person on the left-hand side, sorry, the right-hand side. I'm getting my left and right muddled up. On the right-hand side of the screen there, Teresa Chinn. I treat as agency nurse, and I'm a treating nurse, and it's got their occasional blogger. I used to blog very regularly, but these days it seems that I get quite busy, so I'm more occasional these days. But I've been blogging for about 7 years now, so I'm quite used to it. Also, we've got presenting this evening Clarke, who's known as Jenny the M to everybody. She's an NHS midwife, pretty much an expert blogger, I'd say, a huge skin-to-skin advocate. She even raps from time to time. She's a brilliant speaker, and she also leads the WeMidwives Twitter group. And in addition to Jenny, we've also got Sam Sherrington with us. So Sam is also a nurse, and she's on the board at Trafford CCG. She's also a Lady Mayoress, and a brave new blogger, and very much an all-round kind of amazing and energizing person. So without further ado, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand over to Sam, and hopefully she will unmute her phone for you and jump right in. And Sam's going to explain a little bit about the story so far and kind of how we got here. Sam, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, lovely. So evening, everybody. I'm waving from Bolton in Greater Manchester. So it's absolutely wonderful to be on the webinar with you all. So Teresa's asked me to talk about the story so far. I was massively encouraged to start blogging, but I had no idea where to start. And one of my concerns is, what can I say and what can't I say, and what can I talk about? What would anybody be interested? You know, so many questions. And traditionally, I'm from the nursing fraternity, where when I was doing my training, you know, they used to say, if any media comes towards you, quickly run the other way, or hide in the cupboard, or go anywhere, as long as you didn't put yourself out there or any of your opinions out there either. So as a consequence to that, I was quite nervous about where to start. So I rang my guru, which is the lovely Teresa Chinn, and said to her, where do you think I should start blogging? And Teresa was very kind, as always, very patient with me, and we organised a telephone conversation. And during the conversation, Teresa pointed me to a number of different resources. She recommended lots of different bloggers, including Jenny, and many resources that are on the WeCommunities website actually as well. And then she said, you know, we haven't had a Twitter chat about blogging for a while, so maybe we should do that. So that's when we decided to do the Twitter chat, led obviously by Teresa, and it was wonderful. It happened, was it really in June? Oh my goodness. Okay, so yeah, I'm just looking at the slide deck, and it was in June, and blogging as a nurse. Now, the initial idea was, how could we get more nurses blogging? The Twitter chat is there for everybody to read in the We Nurses website. That's one of the tweets that was in from the chat. What was wonderful for me about the chat was there was lots of new bloggers contemplating blogging who joined the chat. There was also people who were expert bloggers who joined the chat, and they were able to give sound advice, answer questions, direct people to different resources, and that was really quite wonderful. And also to give lots of encouragement and reassurance. So it was during this chat that we decided to think about having more nurse bloggers, more visibility, more noise, more kind of voice for nursing. And obviously there was quite a lot of activity happening around the NHS 70th birthday. And I think from there, the idea was pitched into the Twitter chat about getting 70 nurse bloggers to celebrate NHS 70. And that's the tweet that you can see there on that slide deck. On the left of that slide, you can see all the word, what's it called? The word blog, no, the visual words that came out of the Twitter chat. So, you know, nurses blogging, sharing, reading, Twitter launch, love. I don't remember talking much about love, but I'm sure we did. And so it was a really encouraging chat. And clearly the idea then, those who were on the chat said that's a wonderful idea to start with 70 nurse bloggers, and let's go ahead. So the next thing that happened is, Teresa, Teresa, can I go on to the next slide, please?
Yep, there you go.
Wonderful, thank you. So the next thing that happened is Teresa sat and developed the idea much further. And the visuals that you can see there was some of her work where she was starting to draw this concept into a reality of how we could make this happen. How could we, you know, support and enable 70 bloggers to get blogging to celebrate NHS 70, but more importantly, how could we also get 70 midwife bloggers to join us too? And when we talked about nurses, we were talking about student nurses and student midwives, people who teach, people who are active in practice, those who are in strategy and policy, kind of anybody who's active in midwifery and nursing. And there are many bloggers out there to learn from. We are also very grateful that, and I'll talk a little bit about that, to NHS England, because with their support, and particularly the support of the Chief Nursing Officer, Jane Cummings, we've been extremely pleased that they've ran with the idea to support us and to also actively encourage 70 nurse bloggers and 70 midwife bloggers for the 70th birthday. Jane's blog there, you can see on the left, was where she talks about the perfect opportunity to celebrate 70 years of innovation and person-centred care in our NHS and beyond. And obviously they were calling out for thoughts and ideas and people and sharing for nurses, midwives and care staff from across the country to join together to celebrate their ideas and innovations and achievements. So the team at NHS England and Jane's team have been absolutely instrumental in their support, and Teresa has developed this programme, which includes a webinar that we're all on now, to hopefully get as many nurse and midwife bloggers as we can. And if we hit 70, that would be awesome. But if if we get near to that, that would also be awesome. So we aim a high. If we get more than 70 across the country, then brilliant. So my own personal story is that obviously after the Twitter chat, I was quite inspired to go and read other people's blogs, and there was lots of encouragement of people who would review and support me to get started. Teresa particularly helped me set up the page that you can see there, my own WordPress site, which was good for me to kind of have a space to put my blog onto. And then I got a little blogger's journal, and I started to craft ideas. And what you see there, Nurses Are Fun, is my first blog, and it was absolutely terrifying. It was like writing my first prescription as a nurse. It was one of those moments that I think, oh my goodness, I'm not sure if this is good to go, tremendously exciting and scary at the same time. Scarily exciting, I suppose. And so I wrote the blog up. It was reviewed by colleagues, and then it went live. And I had lots and lots of incredible feedback. What I can say is the nursing community is absolutely, and midwifery community, of course, is extremely supportive. And you know, my first blog, I've had incredible feedback about you know, the impact it's made for individuals, patients, families, gurus. People who are very big authors, all sorts of individuals have commented and sent me feedback, and it's absolutely wonderful. So I'm hugely privileged to be part of the 70 nurse bloggers, and I feel really proud in my achievements so far. And I'm at the very beginning, and I'm hoping I've got lots of ideas for blog number 2. So, and that's what I'm excited to do next.
Thanks, Sam. That's brilliant. So Sam really is just really telling us her story and kind of where she is at this point in time as a new blogger. So thanks a lot for that, Sam. That's fab. So really, kind of now just moving on to a little bit more of the body of the webinar. I kind of feel that we need to start at the beginning here. So this slide is all about what a blog is. So a blog originally started as a web log, and it eventually kind of boiled down to blog. And the idea of a web log was really kind of more of an online diary thing. And it's kind of evolved and grown really to almost a whole community of bloggers out there. You can see here at the top, this is the Google definition of a blog. It seems a bit boring to me, really. A regularly updated website or web page, typically one run by an individual small group that is written in an informal or conversational style. There's nothing really inspiring about that at all. So I kind of looked for other definitions of blogs, and I came across this one. And the first sentence kind of says it all, really, in that a blog is whatever you make it. It's up to you. You're in control of it, and it can be whatever you want it to be. And it's that it kind of becomes a little bit more aspirational, really, and allows us to kind of think a little bit differently about blogging and how we blog. So this slide here is really, we've put together just to really kind of throw some ideas down on a page around what a blog is. And it's all about it being your little corner of the internet, your little space that belongs to you and allows you to kind of be part of something bigger, really. It's somewhere where you can kind of share your ideas and your thoughts and your experiences, but also I think most importantly it's a place where you can show your expertise. And I don't think that nurses and midwives kind of do that enough, really. You know, we all kind of hide our lights under a bushel, but actually, you know, we can use blogging to show that we have expertise in a multitude of areas. It's also a chance to kind of show what being a nurse and being a midwife means to you. So, you know, it's something different to every nurse and midwife, and it's nice to be able to see those varying perspectives and also to share those varying perspectives. We've also popped in here that it's an opportunity to have a political voice, and it's not necessarily kind of big P politics, although it can be, but sometimes it's kind of little p politics. So, you know, those little niggles, those things that you want to change, those things that, you know, you're finding great and you want to share with everybody. So it's, you know, we shouldn't discount that, you know, a blog becomes a platform for that sort of agenda. It's also an opportunity to raise awareness about what you're doing, raise awareness about something you're campaigning for, raise awareness about nursing and midwifery, and you know it really is kind of a really big opportunity that you can grasp with two hands. The final kind of thing that we've popped here is in the top right-hand corner here, and we've kind of put there somewhere to reflect. And of course, with revalidation now coming into play, reflect seems to be the new buzzword. So, you know, having somewhere to reflect is quite nice, really. And we'll kind of come on to that a little bit later. If we move on to the next slide, we start to talk now about all of the things that we need to consider when blogging as a nurse or a midwife. And this slide here is part of an infographic that we developed with We student nurses. And essentially it says, you know, if you're a nurse, I apologise to any midwives on the webinar, but if you're a nurse or a midwife in the real world, then essentially in the virtual world you're a nurse or a midwife too. And it's really, really important that we all understand what the NMC code says around things like blogging and using digital spaces. So if we just look at that quote in the box there, it says, use all forms of spoken, written and digital communication, including social media and networking sites, responsibly. And that kind of says it all, really. You know, it doesn't matter where we are in the world. Our code of conduct still applies, and we just, so long as we remember that, then actually we can't go too far wrong. If I move on to the next slide, this is kind of the second part of that infographic, and we can tweet out the whole infographic a little bit later. But you know, the NMC also have produced some social media guidance, and if you log on to Google, oh, hang on, we need to go backwards again. If you log on to Google and just Google NMC social media guidance, you'll be able to find it. It's really worth a read. It's a 5-minute read, and it's just really practical, common sense advice. So hopefully you should be able to find that. I'm just noticing some comments in the chat box to say that some of you are having some connection failures, so I'm very sorry about that. We will be posting a recording of the webinar afterwards, so you will be able to catch up if you're missing out on some of the sound. Okay, so moving on. So some of the things that the NMC states that you definitely can't do or you need to be wary of are things like sharing confidential information inappropriately, posting inappropriate comments about patients, building or pursuing relationships with patients, any stealing of personal information, encouraging violence or self-harm, bullying or intimidating, inciting hatred or discrimination, and posting pictures of patients and people receiving care without their consent. And it's not limited to that, but you can kind of get a flavour of some of the things that actually the NMC are just kind of warning you about within this space. And this applies to any social media space, not just blogs. If we move on to the next slide. So in order to kind of stay safe as a nurse and midwife in social media, there are a couple of things that we just need to think about. Firstly, we just need to make sure that we think before we post. And I think you just have to understand that that things can actually be shared beyond your control. They can be copied, they can be distributed, even if you've got strict privacy settings. But of course, with a blog, you're kind of putting yourself out there, so you need to kind of just make sure that you're thinking about what you're putting out there. What's also quite useful is if you're unsure about kind of what you're posting online, it's quite useful to think it through in a real life analogy. So to kind of think to yourself, what would I do in real life? How would that equate if that was a real life situation? And sometimes that can kind of help you through that. I think that you also kind of need to just make sure that you kind of protect your professionalism, and that if you're unsure about what you post, then you just have to think about it in terms of your code of practice and where it sits in your code of practice. And again, that should be able to guide you a little bit. I also think kind of, one of the really great things about social media is and blogging is that we can be role models within this space, and we can use social media to share nursing practice and to inform nursing practice as part of our practice, to celebrate what we're doing, and we can show others how we do that in a professional and in a responsible way. So having said all of that, scratch that a second. So what does that mean kind of practically to what we're doing? So what are the things that we need to consider? Kind of when we're applying all of that in a practical way. Kind of some of the things that I've come across kind of when I've been blogging and all the time that I've spent in social media, is that really we kind of need to think about if we're writing reflections online, we need to think in terms of writing reflections quite generically and not specifically. So in terms of kind of, writing our thoughts and feelings rather than sharing, instance around patient care. We would perhaps kind of share kind of, how we thought about something, or, how our shift went, rather than the specifics of our patients. I think we also have to be really, really careful with images, because, people do come a cropper with images a little bit, and we just need to kind of double sanity check those images that we use within our blogs. We need to make sure that they're copyright free, and there are kind of certain websites that you can go to that have a load of copyright free images. But also, if we're using our own images and things, we just need to make sure that there's no identifiable patients in there, that actually we're not posting anything that's going to breach anybody's confidentiality or anything. I always think it's a really good idea to kind of get someone to sanity check what you've written before you hit the publish button. I think as you go along, you kind of get a little bit kind of more used to blogging and kind of what tone you use, and you kind of get to know kind of what's good and what isn't. But kind of in the early days, I very much kind of got people to just read through my blogs, just to see that I was writing the right sort of things. I wasn't oversharing anything. That I wasn't going to do anything that would put my registration at risk. And there's plenty of people out there who would sanity check your blogs for you. So even if you have no one at work that will help you to sanity check it, there's always somebody on Twitter. So just send out a tweet and ask somebody, and usually a nurse or midwife will put their hand up. And like Sam said earlier, nurses and midwives on Twitter are very generous and very helpful. So hopefully, there'll be somebody there that will be able to sanity check what you've written. Another good idea is to read other nursing and midwifery blogs. And towards the end, what we'll do is we'll share a few of those blogs with you. And it's you can get a flavour of what other people are blogging about, the tone they're using, what they're saying, and kind of use them as role models really to what you should write and what you should say. Another really good piece of advice, which I've kind of stood by for quite a number of years, is don't blog when you're angry about something. And I think that that's a very good idea. Long gone are the years when we used to write a letter and then wait until the next day when we had a stamp to be able to post it. Everything's so instant within social media. So sometimes it's worth kind of just sitting on a blog for a while if it's something that you're very passionate about, and kind of not really kind of blogging and publishing in the heat of the moment. So that's really kind of my advice in terms of what we need to consider in order to kind of stay safe within this space. Just to kind of diversify a little bit, I can still see that some people are having problems in terms of their sound. Just to reiterate that we will be posting a recording of the webinar a little bit later for you, so you will be able to catch up. So if I move on to the next slide, this slide starts to talk about what blogging can do for nursing and midwifery. And I'm actually a firm believer that any social media can really raise the profile of what we do as nurses and midwives. Blogging, along with any of the other social media, is a global platform, and it gives us a voice to be able to kind of tell the world what we do. And people are out there and they're reading these blogs and they're seeing what nursing and midwifery is about. And that's such a wonderful thing. This isn't something that we've always had, and it's such a brilliant thing to be able to kind of publish your own story, as it were, and to share your voice and your perspective with the world. And it shows the diversity of nursing and midwifery, and that's just absolutely amazing. So not only does it kind of raise the profile of what we do, it also allows us to kind of celebrate what we do. And again, that's something that we don't do an awful lot of in nursing and midwifery. We kind of don't shout about the good stuff. We don't celebrate what we do. And blogging can allow us to do that. It can also highlight the challenges that there are in nursing and midwifery, and I've read many blogs that do that and do that in a really good and positive light, and that's a real skill to kind of be able to kind of highlight those challenges in a way that's constructive, but at the same time is realistic. So also it allows us to kind of share what we're doing, so sharing our work, sharing the good stuff, letting the world know how diverse our work is, as well as opening up a conversation. And I think that, that's something that we often forget about blogging. Blogging is not just a one-way conversation. People can comment on your blog. They can, if you share it via Twitter, people will quite often share their thoughts and feelings about your blog. So it just opens up a whole world of possibilities, really. Now I'm hoping that Jenny Clarke is on the line, and I'm hoping that I can hand over to Jenny.
Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yes, that's fabulous. Good. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand over to Jenny, and she's just going to tell you a little bit about her story and what blogging's done for her.
Thank you. Is that clear enough? Can everybody hear okay? Yes.
I can hear you very clearly, yes.
Right, that's great. Okay, I'm ready for my slides.
There we go.
Hi everybody, my name's Jenny Clarke. I'm actually a midwife, an NHS midwife, but what happened to me was I was getting very well, I would say disheartened about the lack of skin-to-skin contact, not just within my trust but across the NHS. Women who just had babies. And I knew the importance of it, so I started doing things at work and trying to make a difference. And then one day I just saw red and did something really, really bad. I decided I'd write on the wall on the operating theatre. I talked about quite large letters. That didn't go down very well, but in the end it did make a difference because people listened to me at work. And then I thought, I can't do that all the time. I can't keep writing on walls and encourage other people to do that. So I decided to blog, and I think one of my role models with blogging is definitely, I'm not just saying it because she's here, but Teresa Chinn, agency nurse. I call her agency nurse on my phone even. And I started looking at what she was doing. You know, she did those one-page blogs and also vlogging, which is a video log diary. I've done a couple of them on Twitter, just short ones. And I started talking about things that other people would tell me that were frustrating them at work when others weren't helping them and they were upset. And I thought, right, how can I change that around? So I started writing things like, how can I change things around? So if somebody isn't helping you in the room, I used to put things like, why it's good to help others at work. Instead of saying, when people don't help you, it's not good. I turned it around and made it into how helping others at work can make you feel more positive and give you a better work ethos and make you go home feeling like you've got more satisfaction. So a lot of my blogs are written like that when I've felt frustrated about things at work or frustrated about things for others, and then I've started blogging about it. My last blog that I've just done actually was a little bit personal because I went to my sister's the other week and I saw a photograph of somebody who came to my house once when I was only about 15 and had a difficult encounter with him, let's put it like that. I'll just be brief about that because I don't want to go into it. And I blogged about it because when I saw his photograph, I've not seen his photograph since I was 15. I'm now in my 50s and I was at my sister's. I just said, is that who I think it is? And she said, yeah. And I said, I'm going to blog about that today because it's made me so angry that my dad didn't listen to me. So I blogged about that. So you can blog about all kinds of things, but I think it is the way that you do it is the most important thing. If you sort of bring people in to your feelings and try and get on the level with that person, the same level, and don't act like you're above anybody. My philosophy has always been when I present to make the audience my friend and to connect with them so that they understand me as a person and not to be anybody who acts like they know more than somebody else. I never act like I know somebody else. I always think no more than somebody else. I always try and think, right, somebody here knows more than I do. I'm always learning. And I think if you start with that philosophy, you can't really go wrong when you focus on the fact that we all learn from one another. And I'm always learning. So do you know if any of my slides are going to come up? My slides are not coming up, Teresa. I don't know why, but I do think blogging does give us a voice, though. And I think it's an outlet for you when you, perhaps if you are feeling frustrated or you're feeling joyous about something. And sometimes at work you don't have time to talk about all the things, your emotions, because it's so busy, which is, I find blogging very reflective and very positive for me. It's helped me a lot in my career, and it's actually also given me a lot of courage. It's given me courage to write about things. Are you still there, Tree?
I am. Your slide is up. I don't know if your web connection's gone a bit slow, Jenny.
Oh, it might have gone a bit slow. Right, well, I'll put my slide up, right, so I can see it for me. And I think my first slide is, it's not about how you're doing it or what you do. It's not about how you are doing what you do. It's about why you do it. So it's not about the fact that how I do skin to skin or how I do my job or what I do. Why do I go on about skin to skin? Why do I blog? And the most important thing for me to say to you all is why I do what I do is so that other midwives across the world can think, I could perhaps do that. And then they might start changing their practice, or they might inspire somebody else, or they might start to blog. So some people might get me wrong and think it's all about me. It certainly isn't all about me. It's about me spreading the word to others to improve midwifery practice. So that's my main ethos, I think, about being a blogging, tweeting midwife. It's not about me becoming well known. It's about getting others, lifting others up so that they can, do what I do. Because I'm a normal midwife. I'm nobody special. I come from Oldham. I grew up in a normal house. We didn't have loads of money. We were just basic, and I just became a nurse and then became very passionate as a midwife about skin-to-skin contact. So, is it time for the next slide now, Tree? I'm taking notes.
I've got to the next slide.
Right, so my next slide is what blogging means to me. So I see blogging as a stage for self-expression. I don't mean you can start speaking out saying, I hate this, I hate that. I do really try, and I'm a very positive person, and I try and speak from a positive angle. Because I think if you're a person that blogs negatively, I don't think you're going to get the same impact on people, because you're not going to help them to see how they can make a change happen. I do think there should be some focus on why things are wrong within the NHS. We need to talk about things like that as well. It can't all be rainbows and unicorns, can it? It's got to be realistic as well. We need realism. I use it as reflection throughout my professional life to storytell and anonymise things, because it helps me as well that to look back on things and think, remember that, but it's said in a different way. I also read a lot of Brene Brown's work, and she is a storyteller. I don't know if you've heard of Brene Brown. I find blogging is a good way of reaching out to others to help them to change what they're doing, feel inspired and support them. And I do get quite a lot of messages on my blogs and quite a lot of messages on Twitter. Somebody messaged me the other day saying, can I talk to you about supporting future midwives? And that's really important to me as a midwife, to help others. My own evidence really is encased in digital format. So when you've got a blog, I've got 2 grown-up children, and I said to them, look, I've left a digital footprint. When I go, my blog will still exist. My Twitter will still exist. It will be there for you to read. And that is really important to me, not because I'm a geek to do with social media, but because everything that I write is positive, and it sort of reflects who I am as a person. And I want to make my children feel proud when they look at it in another 20 years or 30 years, 40 years when I'm not here. Then I want them to look back and think, oh, my mum wrote that. And, it doesn't mean they have to share it, but they'll look back and they've read my words. And it is a little bit like a book. It's like, I feel like I've written a book with a blog. So also, blogging is about speaking out. I did write a blog about bullying in the NHS and why it needs to be sorted out. So things like that are really important, and it also is important the way that you word that. And I try to write stories that matter to the women that I care, stories that matter to people in the NHS, stories that matter to people who don't work in the NHS, people who might be using the NHS as patient or visitor, and I see. I'm not being, I'm just telling you the truth now. I'm not an academic midwife. I'm very referencing freaks me out a little bit, and I'm being very honest with you because there's no point in me saying that I am academic. I'm not academic midwife. I'm a very practical midwife. I read loads of evidence. I'm always reading new research that's come out. When it comes to essays, they just leave me cold. I panic about essays. So my blogs, I see them as essays without references. But they have got references in them because they are evidence of the people that I have looked after. And when you read them, you'll understand what I mean. I also read blogging as spreading the midwifery word, because to me, it's really important that midwives' profiles are raised. And we've had a lot of bad press recently, the most recent one being midwives tyrannising women about breastfeeding. I'll be blogging about that later this week. So that is my take on why blogging matters to me, and I hope that it influences you in some way in your role. Yeah, that's it.
Thanks, Jenny. That's brilliant. Absolutely fab. I really love the fact that you said that it's kind of your digital legacy, really, that it's putting something out there for your children, your grandchildren to kind of say, this is me, this is what I was all about, and that you were a proud and passionate midwife. So I think that's absolutely wonderful. There have been a couple of comments on the chat box as we've gone through. Paula Gales just shared that she started a blog back in 2010, and she was ill, and finding others in the same community was so therapeutic. I was a crafter back then, so my blog was about crafting. I found it very supportive. Well, that's amazing, Paula. Actually thinking in terms of, perhaps using those skills to blog. You haven't put if you're a nurse or a midwife or another professional, but I think it's fabulous that you're going to use those skills and you're starting to think about blogging in a more professional capacity. But I think that you'll definitely find the same sort of community in terms of your blogging as a healthcare professional, and you'll find that same support out there, and you'll engage people in lots of different conversations. So that will be amazing. Oh, Paula says she's a second year, in brackets, older student nurse at Derby Uni. Well, lovely to meet you, Paula.
Paula.
I know that there are lots of students out there who have taken up blogging. So don't be afraid to be a student nurse or a student midwife, and also share your point of view. So have you got any advice for Paula, Jenny, while you're still on the line?
I think when you're a student, there's a lot of you shouldn't be blogging, you shouldn't be doing this. But I think as long as you are, sticking with the guidance, the NMC guidance about blogging and social media, you're fine, And I don't see the reason why you have to have two. Some people have two Twitter handles, two blogs. I just think be yourself. I'm just myself. Today I was talking about going in Marks and Spencer's. Today I was talking about meeting my practice nurse on my asthma check, and it turned out that it was the first midwife she met when she was in early labour, and we didn't realise till today because I've never met her before. So that's me as a person as well. I don't feel I can separate being a midwife from being a mother, from being a woman. It's just who I am. Being a midwife is part of me. And I think that if you read a lot of other people's work that have, that have a professional profile, you will see that they are real people when they put things like got to go and get a cuppa now or burnt the dinner. It just makes us human.
That's really lovely advice. Thanks, Jenny. That's fab. There's one more comment up here that says it's from Viewer 14. I don't know who Viewer 14 is, but they said that also try to blog positively. Many blogs are quite hard to read. I think that kind of just picks up on the point, doesn't it? That blogging positively is quite a nice thing. It does make it a lot easier to read and a lot easier to share, really, and a lot easier to comment on. So thanks for that comment, whoever viewer 14 is. And Paul has just written another comment very quickly. I've definitely thought about it in the last 6 months and want to lend my insights or lack of them in the bigger community. Okay, well, Paula, I think that quite nicely kind of leads us on to our next slide, which is all about being brave, really. So really, I think, blogging, I think you do have to have quite a bit of courage in order to kind of take those first steps. But the only thing that I can say is that it's well worth it. There's a few quotes here in terms of, life shrinks or expands in proportion to one's courage, and I think that almost definitely applies to blogging. I think that, if we can take those first steps and write that first blog, and get some good feedback, then that gives us a little bit more courage to kind of write the second blog. But it's having that courage to kind of put pen to paper for that very first time. And I think the only thing I can say is that it's very much worth it. To be able to show what you do, to be able to show what nursing and midwifery is all about, can really only be a good thing for you and a good thing for nursing and midwifery. So if I move on, if you guys are looking for a little bit of inspiration, then we have actually so far been collating all of the 70 nurse bloggers blogs and all of the 70 midwife bloggers blogs, and I'll tweet them out towards the end of the webinar. And I'm very pleased to say that actually we reached 70 nurse bloggers, so we have 70 nurse bloggers, which is absolutely brilliant. And we're kind of now diversifying slightly in terms of making things a little bit more difficult for ourselves. And we've now got 70 nurse bloggers north, south, east and west. So it'll be interesting to see kind of, where nurses are blogging the most, really. So we're kind of going a little bit further with the nurses and just blogging a little bit more and encouraging more and more nurses to kind of take those first steps. The midwives, we can forgive you, midwives, because you're kind of a very much smaller profession than nursing. So I think that there's about 30 midwives so far. So we're hoping that we'll get to that 70 midwife bloggers and inspire and encourage midwives to really start sharing what they're doing via blogs. But all of those blogs are collated into 2 Twitter moments. And again, I said that I'll tweet those out once we finish the webinar, so that you guys can have a look through and read them. And I would really encourage you, if you're looking for inspiration, is to kind of log on, have a read of some of those blogs, and perhaps even read some of the ones that you wouldn't necessarily read. So perhaps if you're a nurse, read a couple of the midwifery blogs. If you're a long-standing nurse, perhaps read some of the student nursing blogs, and just really kind of delve in there and have a look and see what other people are saying. Of course, I would definitely encourage you to read Sam Sherrington's first blog, and Jane Cummings's blog around 70 nurse bloggers, and definitely log on and have a read of Jenny the M's blog. And again, we'll share all of these via the Twitter stream, so via 70 nurse bloggers and 70 midwife bloggers for you. I can now see that there's a couple more comments. So Paula is saying, fabulous, I'm thinking of a name for my blog. This is the hardest part, the crafty nurse, question mark. Okay, I think that sounds like a great title to me. I think sometimes it's those small things, isn't it? It's the small details. But do you know what's amazing, Paula, is that actually you're thinking of the name for your blog, so that means that you're going to do it. So that's absolutely fab. So there's another comment from viewer 17, and they say, could the blogs be clinical area specific, community, outpatients, A&E, mental health? Yes, I mean that's certainly something that we can consider. So yeah, we can look at that and perhaps see how we could collate that down the line a little bit, and start to kind of put the blogs into kind of more specific areas, so that people kind of develop communities of practice almost. So there's another comment from Siobhan. My New Year's resolution was to learn how to use Twitter, and now I've tasked myself to blog and vlog. Wow. As a second-year mature student, it's a bit scary. Yeah, it is. It is quite scary to kind of stand on the edge there and to be thinking about blogging and even vlogging. So for those of you who don't know what vlogging is, a vlog is a community. It's a video blog. Yeah, I think my advice would be blog first, and then think about doing the video blog, because you kind of almost give a little bit more of yourself in a video blog. So I would almost try to put pen to paper first, and then perhaps think about video. But there are some student nurse blogs and vlogs on the 70 Nurse Bloggers list. So please go and have a look at those. There's some brilliant examples of student nurses leading the way, really. Viewer 17's getting carried away there, so 70 community nursing bloggers. Yay! That sounds amazing. 70 student nurse bloggers, Siobhan says. So yeah, it's lovely to have some students on the webinar tonight. So thank you all for your comments. And it's nice to see that you're a little bit fired up about kind of driving blogging forward in nursing and midwifery. So we're kind of almost coming to the end of the webinar, and really it's, like I said, tonight was just really kind of more about the why, and perhaps a little bit about inspiring you into action, and kind of getting you thinking that blogging as a nurse or a midwife is a real possibility, and it's okay to blog as a nurse or a midwife. When we look at some of our nurse leaders like Jane Cummings and Hilary Garrett, they're all writing blogs and sharing them. So we can, any nurse and midwife can do it, and we can get out there and put ourselves out there. But it's all about just having perhaps just a little bit of courage to be able to do that. The next webinar, which is the same time next week, is actually going to look a little bit more at the practicalities of blogging. What makes a good blog, how to structure your blog, where to put it. So, you've written a blog, you've got it in a Word document. What do you do with it then? Where do you put it on the web? We're also going to talk about kind of what it's like to be a new blogger. We're going to talk a little bit about vlogs, so Siobhan should hopefully be happy, and a little bit about podcasts as well. And then, of course, kind of promoting your blog. So it's all very well having a blog sitting somewhere, but you have to tell people about it. And again, I don't think that's that's something that we're very good at as nurses and midwives. We need to kind of shout about things when we've done them, and blogging is no different at all. And then we're going to hopefully kind of do a little bit about encouraging conversation, and also about kind of keeping going, so keeping that momentum going. So once you've kind of once you've written your first blog, it's then thinking about writing the next blog and the next one. So keeping it going and keeping it up. So all of that we'll cover in the next webinar. Just before we go, I'm just going to have a quick look down the comments. So Paula Gale says, I'm looking forward to next week's webinar. I'm never lost for words. I will need to hold back. I want people to still be awake at the end. I did very long posts on my other blog. Yes, I think short and sweet is always good. And Tosin says, glad to be part of this, found out about the webinar on my very first day on Twitter. Wow, that's good. I look forward to the next webinar. Well, brilliant to have you with us. And Siobhan also says she's looking forward to next week and how to. So, like I said, we have recorded this webinar, so we will tweet that out and we will pop it on our webpage. So I apologise for anybody who had sound problems at the beginning of the webinar. They seem to have been resolved through as we've gone on. So that's brilliant. So please kind of go back and listen to the beginning parts of the webinar on the catch-up video. In the meantime, have a really great week, and perhaps some of you would like to perhaps draft a blog before this time next week, perhaps put pen to paper, even if it is just in a Word document. Somebody's just asked, does this count towards revalidation? Yes, of course it does. Yes. Oh, we've got a yay shout, so that's great. Yes, absolutely. Perhaps write a little reflection about your webinar experience and pop it in your portfolio for your revalidation. So I'm just going to leave you with these words. A blog is merely a tool that lets you do anything from changing the world to sharing your grocery list. And I think that's a very good place to end this webinar. Thank you all for your time, and I hope to catch up with you all next week.